And I want to thank our team for caring enough about this issue here. I want to thank Colin for caring enough to set up this Zoom meeting. I gave up with the very important meeting, so I'd like to introduce you to the. You want the microphone? I'd like to see it. Can you hear me okay? To our Conservation Commission. This is Sheila. This is Eric, Jack, and I'm Judy. So we will try our best to, and I want to thank really three gentlemen here who've been working very hard. And Robert, who's landed doing something else tonight, and our senior peer, Ben Stockman, who has advised us for many years. So the first item we have is, almost said order of conditions, that's on the top. Oh, the minutes, we have to approve the minutes of the last meeting. All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of September 24th.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, I see that Peter just came in. Peter represents the planning board. Thank you, Peter, so that you could make it. Okay, so we have a notice of intent from New Leaf Energy. And it's for the property of the Rocky Pit Pro for construction of a 3.98 megawatt solar energy generating and battery energy storage system. Construction of a gravel access road. The site is located at 66 North Union Street, east of North Union Street. The proposed project consists of photovoltaic fixed tilt modules and battery enclosures mounted on concrete pad. All right, so let's begin here with, just to tell you how we're going to proceed. We will begin, and then New Leaf would like to present. They have the Department of Environmental Protection raised questions, and they have answers they would like to give to those particular questions. And then we'll entertain comments from the rest of you. All right, so just a few. I came across the Mass DEP photovoltaic system solar array review, and I just wanted to share a couple things with you. First I want to say, I think all of us here love Plainfield, and that's the one thing we really have in common. We love this community, we love the natural areas, we love the woodlands, the ponds, the streams, and we all value being here so much. Just for the background, as far as photovoltaic systems, Massachusetts zoning law states that no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit or unreasonably regulate solar energy systems except where necessary to protect public health, safety, or welfare. So obviously there's a big incentive for solar. The Green Communities Act of 2008 promotes adoption of new policies to encourage investment in renewable energy and boost energy. And if you get the Hampshire Gazette today, Maura Healey had an article right there. She really wants to push solar. Of course, the caveat is where and how. I was going through some of the things where they have on siting photovoltaic systems. And one thing I noticed that it did say conversion of forests to photovoltaic systems arrays is less beneficial for greenhouse gas reduction than converting disturbed areas to photovoltaic systems. So we have to make these kinds of decisions. And hopefully tonight we'll be able to talk about And another comment here was, solar projects within the buffer zone or other jurisdictional areas should endeavor to utilize low impact development techniques. Low impact techniques, so that's another thing that perhaps, New Leaf can talk to tonight. So those are my brief comments right now, and I'll turn it over to you gentlemen who want to respond.
Thank you, Judy.
Put this over here.
Lovely. Smith, I'm a civil engineer with New Leaf Energy. Here with me tonight are Mike Conway and Connor Glow, also with New Leaf Energy. So I'll just go over the proposal real quick here. I think many people are familiar with it. And then here I'll pass out, actually we do, like Judy mentioned, we did receive comments from Mass DEP. So we did make a few changes, comment responses. And I also included in this is also updated plan set, which matches what we provided to the planning board, but we made a few changes, so I can help out that as well. I want to get those in your hands tonight. And obviously don't have a chance to look at that, but we'll go over. More paperwork, I know, I'm sorry.
Good, you have an active recycling program.
Yeah, and find additional copies anytime you'd like, but, so I guess as far as the project goes, Judy mentioned this is a bit under 4 megawatt project, 9.5 megawatt DC solar and battery energy storage project. Located fenced area, about 23 acres, located on Mr. Robert Picco's property at 66 North Union Street. Project consists of solar modules mounted on galvanized steel racking, fixed tilt racking, and will be accessed by a gravel access road utilizing the existing driveway, but kind of be veering more south, east, to the back acreage of the property. The project will be interconnected at the grid, or at the street, so the distribution grid, not transmission grid, so this is not kind of shipped to Boston or anything. It's the electrons are actually connected directly to the distribution grid here in town. That's done via interconnection equipment that's pole mounted, so there'll be a series of poles along the access road. The facility itself will be surrounded by a 7-foot agricultural fence, which is basically a wooden beam with a deer fencing. It's there. As far as equipment, the equipment and battery energy storage is all centrally located here on the property. Again, that equipment pad, gravel area, housing concrete pads with the electrical equipment placed on it, which includes batteries, inverters, transformers, switchgear, and a few other accessory, data acquisition system, a few other accessory pieces of equipment. As far as site impacts go, we will be reseeding the site right there. This is wooded site, so we will be cutting trees within the fence. We will need to remove stumps, but we will be reseeding with a hummingbird and butterfly garden mix. As a spec, would be happy to change that if there is a recommendation, but our goal is to use a pollinator friendly mix. So that's actually one of the changes that we included in the updated plans to specify seed mix that we'll be using. Stormwater control, we've done a stormwater analysis, the stormwater report included. We'll have a series of dry detention and infiltration basins after runoff, ensure that there's not increased heat discharge off the site as compared to the existing conditions. So basically those basins are put there to catch that potential increase in runoff by converting wooded area to solar array. There's a bit more runoff, but those basins are meant to effectively match that existing discharge. I think the last thing I'll mention as far as what we're here for, wetland impacts. No wetland impacts directly for the project. The reason we're on the Conservation Commission is the buffer zone only, so there are some impacts to the 100-foot buffer. When we were laying the site out, we kind of gave ourselves a hard line, say, we don't want to impact, with the 50-foot buffer to the wetland. So we give no impact whatsoever, no tree clearing or anything like that in the 0 to 50-foot buffer. Outside of that, there will be some tree clearing outside the fence. We're gonna leave the stumps, which we have a lot of experience with other projects in the state. And that, as you can imagine, right, reduces quite a bit of the earth disturbance and allows the site to revegetate much quicker and easier when you're only cutting or when you're leaving the stumps. So outside of the fence in any areas where you leave stumps, that's the majority of the kind of 50 to 100-foot buffer. There are areas where the fence does encroach in that, as I mentioned, stuff we were removed. And then the one other area, cover type change, would be the access road. It is there are areas where it goes within the 50 to 100 buffer. I think that is a high level review of the project. We can discuss further the responses to the Mass DEP if you'd like, but I guess I'll stop there and answer any questions that the commission may have.
Well, I have a few comments. Besides the DEP's comments, of which we have to take into consideration, I looked at your narrative and that you had verbally said that this is going to be a staged development, you think, where you would stabilize, you would remove the trees, stabilize, and move on to the next, and so on and so forth. Did I interpret that correctly?
No, we're not proposing to fully stage it. So the project will have a SWIP, stormwater pollution prevention plan, put in place prior to construction. And part of that, it won't be more than 5 acres open at any given time. So in that sense, open stage where, open earth I forgot to mention, there's no grading proposed. So there are obviously stump removal will produce some disturbance, but there's no grading. But as far as like full phasing, tree clearing and full stabilization, no, it will be more of a, different phases will be starting as the previous stage finishes.
Okay, and you said no more than 8 acres exposed at a time?
5.
5 acres, 5 acres. And I presume you'll be moving from northwest to southeast along the contour lines as you do this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a couple of other things that I think are related to this that we've added to our plans, again, based on feedback from the community and from the planning board, is we've included a lot more detail on sediment and erosion control, which would be required, that's construction for the SWIP regardless, but we wanted to make sure it was in these site use plans to provide assurances to the town, community, and also for a contractor in the future to make sure that they, emphasize those pieces. So I think the big thing that we added is the use of stump grindings. So a really effective erosion sediment control device, and actually having them not just perimeter controls, but actually within the array. We don't have the plan here, but it's in here. Basically rows of these sediment and erosion control berms, using the stump grindings, so that flow site is interrupted at intervals rather than only perimeter. So that's one big thing.
Thank you, Tom. Also, I mentioned perimeter fence. And DEP guidelines, so you need to leave a 6-inch opening at the bottom to allow for pass through. But that needs to be in the narrative too.
Yeah, we can add it to the narrative. It is on the plans on the detail sheets in the back, but I can add it in there.
Yeah, I would And then I noticed that the spacing of the panels, you mentioned that there's a 1 inch between the panels, by the way, it's over 16,000 panels, correct?
You believe that is? Yeah.
1 inch between is allowed for the water to penetrate and, permeate into the ground. I mean, it doesn't sound like very much.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it is sufficient, so it's not, right, these panels and what, commission's referring to is that each of these racks consist of individual modules, so, right, the racks are 12 feet by 24 feet, but those don't act as, right, in one giant impervious surface, so the rainwater doesn't fall now from the top and all the way, and at the bottom, you have like a significant drip edge. They've actually broken up into individual modules with a gap. So yes, it does disrupt like rainwater a bit, not, it's not like there's nothing there. But that inch does allow the rainwater to fall below the panel without kind of traveling to the next panel and increasing the runoff or combining with the runoff from another.
That's a lot of impervious surfaces out there with those 16,000 panels.
Right, but the gap basically allows the area underneath those panels to be utilized for infiltration or just general sheet flow, so it doesn't quite as like an impervious surface, so it looks like a great tap for
Let's see. Oh. This is a lot of material to digest. I think we should hand it this. I think we should call for a continuation until our next meeting.
In order to digest the new material. Okay, well, let's continue on, and then we'll keep that as an option. Eric, you want to add anything?
Just following up on that drip edge. Are you making any provisions for each of those individual drip edge slots?
The main provision is, so not a direct physical. But no diagram, nothing like that. The main thing is ensuring that vegetation takes and that will prevent erosion. That's like the main, these sites, when the sites are well vegetated, that kind of resolves the vast majority of erosion sediment issues, without having to, install thousands of feet of. It's the key thing.
Thank you.
Mostly have questions about this.
What is it?
That the paper that you, the question you have, or Ed?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want to talk about it, or?
And she's, responding, she wants to question some of the things that Ed has a list of things here. We actually have another meeting at 7:30 with, a different, session, RDA, so I'd like to limit the public's comments to 3 minutes if possible. I won't be real strict about that, but since it's come up about Ed, do you want to raise your question?
Yeah, you have one question about the town of Duxbury in here. The town of Duxbury. You asked, what does the town of Duxbury have to do with this project in Plainview?
Please let me ask that question too, because I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah,
On the
that relevant?
application,
it's not
they
relevant.
talk about, they have a heading that says the town of Duxbury, and they talk about the town of Duxbury does this, and that. And I'm wondering if this is a project in Plainfield, or this is some kind of boilerplate thing that was threw in there, or nobody checked it, or I don't know what it's in Duxbury, I don't even know where Duxbury is.
That was an error, that was included in there, it was, this section was applicable to really any of our renewable projects, and that section did, still reference Duxbury, but it should have said Plainville.
Okay, well, all right.
So there's a heading that talks about Duxbury too, on a couple of pages or something. But, you might have changed it in.
Yeah, I remember you made that
in
comment.
that application.
When we resubmitted, we did double check and get rid of that, just that, or,
Curious.
yeah.
So,
But not,
address the wetland issues? Do you want to address wetland issues?
Correct, so I want to, I'd love to address Judy, and,
Well, why don't you highlight some of them?
thing I'd like to highlight is that, I think it would be important, looking at the stormwater report that was submitted, that, some, firm has expertise in stormwater management, take a look at that. It's an extensive stormwater report that was in the submittal that I reviewed. I don't know if it's in this submittal or not. But I strongly suggest that, that be farmed out to somebody, some other firm.
Okay, they have submitted to us a very extensive stormwater report, but
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, like a peer review, that type of thing. Okay. All right, other comments? Yes.
Well, in my research, we've been operating under the impression that Massachusetts is in favor of the solar fields, which they are. But they have formed a new commission. And that new commission is called the MassDOT Clean Energy Siting and Energy Permitting Division, because they have become aware that this is a problem throughout the state. We're not the only town facing this. And what this commission is meant to do is to find proper sites for these solar fields, where we're not clear cutting. Massachusetts is not in favor of clear cutting to create solar fields.
Okay.
This woman, Allison Gage, who heads up the division, is happy to come and speak to us, because this is all they do. Now, it's a new commission, and they won't have all their conditions until July 2026, because they need time to put it all together. But they have been commissioned by MassGov to take care of this sort of problem. And, their mission is to look at site suitability and create new regulations focused on protecting the environment and addressing public health and safety concerns. And in our bylaws, it also says that one of our bylaws says that we are here to protect the environment, the town, the agriculture in the town, and the public health and safety of everyone in it. And I think it's really important that we take the time to speak to this woman. She's happy to come to the planning board as well. And we take the time to postpone this so that we can figure out what all the real problems are. What MassGov is actually advocating is landfill and on rooftops of warehouses. They are not advocating, and they do not say, as you said, that the benefit from the solar is overcoming the trees. We are clear cutting, and we are close to 4 areas and close to wetlands, and there's an aquifer under there, and it will affect all of our water. And they are there to protect our environment. The other thing I noticed, which there's a couple things that were not addressed. One is, when this is done in 20 years, they have no responsibility to replant anything. And I think that's wrong. I think that is their responsibility. If they're making money off of it, they need to take care of the town and the environment. Number 2 is, nobody talked about the security light. So there is security lighting, and now there's gonna be light pollution in the town, because every time something moves in there, there has to be security lighting to light it up, which is gonna affect every property abutting that. And you can hear and see everything in this town miles away. So I think we need to address that, because I think light pollution is really, really important. Especially in a town where you can see the stars at night. And I also found a study by the Audubon and Harvard Forest Study that also advocates landfills. And it does not advocate or approve of clear cutting 30 acres of trees and natural forestation.
Okay,
And I'm happy to turn all of this information over and I will forward to everyone, but I wanted to put it out there first. I will forward this new division of the Mass Gov. I will forward her email to everyone and she's happy to talk to all of us.
thank you, but you said that it wouldn't be till 2026 if they're actually.
Well, they are working now and they have conferred with Beckett and Blandford, who are facing a similar issue right now. And, but officially, they won't have conditions and the regulations out until 2026. I know Paige mentioned last time that that the town, you have to talk to town council, but that we can postpone the decision until we do further investigations.
It's a moratorium, other Blandford's considered it.
Anyway, and that might buy us a little time to figure out if this is really right for our town.
Okay, thank you. Paige, did you want to?
Yeah, I had a couple quick comments. I own 82 North Union Street. I'm a butter to this project. The lighting issue was just raised to me a few minutes ago. I understand your focus is on wildlife, but I want to bring up the fact that this is a huge risk factor for horse safety in the summer and fall. It's a disease called Potomac horse fever. Even vaccinated animals can get it. It's deadly. It's thousands and thousands of dollars in hospitalization. The lights attract water insects like dragonflies, and if they die in the feed or the water, it is a potentially deadly disease. I have 4 horses. My neighbor has 12-ish. This is hugely concerning from a horse safety perspective, as well as a kind of a welfare perspective, the potential light pollution. I was not aware of this. I've also done extensive research. I agree with what you were sharing, that this is just not recommended at all from kind of a wild standpoint. The Massachusetts Appalachian Mountain Club and Citizens for Responsible Solar state not to do this from an environmental perspective. I also had a couple of questions. We have a known bear problem already in town. We've had it for a couple of years. Curious about what effects this could have on bears and if there's a plan in place, if they become more of an issue and are pushed up into residences. Also curious about what chemicals the panels and the batteries contain. A lot of my research goes into the risks of cadmium, if panels break or if there are fires. Just kind of wanted to express my concerns. I'm on a well, and this seems like a kind of a huge environmental safety risk.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
There's a lot there. I think a lot of it maybe not in the jurisdiction of the comp now, but I think one easy item that I can address is the lighting. We could put it on a switch. I know it was mentioned a motion activated, we put it on a switch, so it's off only, and it's only available for when maintenance people go out there, so it'll be off. And you don't have to worry about that. So I just want to mention that.
So what happens when there's a fire or when somebody has to go in and check it?
When someone has to go and check that it turned the light on.
And so if there's a fire, you're gonna just turn the light on?
I'm not sure what.
Have it on remote.
We could have it on remote, but we could, if the fire department wants that, we could do that, but I'm not clear on why you would need a light for fire. With,
So they could see what they're doing.
Yeah. All right, please. And
There's been certain people mention tree cutting. Well, trees are going to be cut on this site, but all the vegetation is going to be taken. I guess it has to be totally cleared for them to construct these panels. So it's not only going to be trees, it's going to be the saplings and the seedlings and the shrubs and all the herbaceous vegetation that stabilizes the site now will be removed. So I mean, we need to look at this project from that perspective. Because when you remove all of this 30.8 acres, I think it is.
A little.
It's close. To remove this, it'll expose all of the soils. The process of removing the stumps, just the machinery moving around, the excavators to remove that will take and expose all of the soil. So that's something that the commission, and they have to address, because this is been portrayed as a continuously sloping land. Nobody ever put in the percentage of slope that's in there, and I would like to know what that is, because that tells me a lot about the sloping, this continuously sloping land is. So, that's one of my questions in there, but, so it slopes, and you know which direction it slopes into. It slopes towards all of the EBW, for boarding and vegetative wetlands. So, at any rate, just think of it in terms of exposing all of this soil, in unphased way. I mean, there was some phasing that the engineer talked about tonight, like that. This is not a phased project. It's only phased because they can only build it so fast.
Yes,
I have a question about drought. I've been wondering what's gonna grow when the soil is bone dry like it has been the last few years throughout the summer. And I went for a hike today where I've been hiking for years over in the state forest, and I was doubled over. It is dry as a bone. What used to be a huge pond is now grass sprouting on hills.
are you asking what's gonna
Yeah,
happen
this is
to
the plan.
the solar panels?
Yeah, but like how our pollinators are supposed to grow when it's just dust and dirt and it's so dry, and who's gonna water it and et cetera.
Well, you're not expected to start until late 26, right?
They're real, at their release.
Yeah, so it's going to be different. Hopefully it'll be different.
Yes,
Judy, would it be helpful for us to hear what the DEP's comments were?
sure. Their the DEP, well, you can address.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Like, so the first one, they had 7 comments, and I hope it's okay if I paraphrase or.
Sure, go ahead.
The first comment was regarding the filing fee. They requested that we file under a different, yeah, so it's a bit more, so we're gonna take care of that. We'll get you the additional check, that's great. They don't have it, we'll hopefully get it to you by the end of each. And the check is being sent to Boston. Second comment, we did submit, so this site, an ORAD was issued on this site back in 2019. For anyone that's not familiar, that's basically, it's a request for a resource delineation. So previous developer worked for Pico delineated wetlands on the site, and the commission at that time, 2019, basically confirmed that delineation. Wasn't related to a project. It was just like, yes, we agree with this delineation. That has since expired, which we understand, but we did include a comparison plan to just kind of to help the commission understand, like, this is very similar. We delineated something very similar. The result was very similar to what you looked at in 2019. This DEP made a comment that it is apparently meaningless. I think they were under the assumption that we were implying that it was legally binding. So I just responded, we understand it's not legally binding, it was purely for the commission's information. That comparison. It was talking about the stormwater report, request for the soil to be evaluated on site. We have consulted USGS data, and we have a soil evaluator on site, took a look at that data, to confirm. We haven't done a soil evaluation on site as to date, but we will be doing that prior to construction to confirm. Really what this comes down to is the infiltration rates assumed in the stormwater report. We put a very conservative assumption in our report so that, you know, the system will work even if it's not getting great infiltration. We expect that when that evaluation is done in the field, likely get better infiltration and therefore the system will work all that much better. But they were pointing out that we had done that, we would like that be a condition of approval that we make sure to do that in construction. Fourth comment was about a TSS removal worksheet, which we had omitted from the stormwater report. We have included that in the updated documentation. We did only do it for the, I guess we'll get a little bit more in the weeds here, but we have four stormwater basins proposed, one of which we're proposing as an infiltration basin. And that's gonna be capturing the runoff from really the only impervious surfaces created on the project with the equipment pad. So this is an infiltration basin. These are just dry detention basins. The dry detention basins are not meant as treatment because they're just basically capturing runoff from a grassed area underneath the modules. Whereas this one, we are treating by basically filtering out any suspended solids. So we did perform that sheet, or we did include the sheet for this basin. It's an updated material. 5. This was a document to the board. Level. So basically the stormwater report, as is typical industry standard, is looks at the current conditions and the post conditions, or the post construction with seeded grass. This column is basically saying good request. So we look at the construction level conditions. I did respond that I think that should be addressed by all the uses of erosion and sediment control that we proposed, so that we've added here, rather than performing like stormwater modeling exercises for that construction phase. Item number 6 was just a comment about the scale of one of the plans. We included basically a scale showing the entire project at this size, so you can see the whole thing on one sheet. They suggested that maybe a zoomed in, multiple sheets zoomed in might be better. We defer to the commission. In our opinion, it's easier to see the whole thing at once, but we defer to the commission on that. And then the last comment was just a comment to the commission that they can have a peer reviewer, if they wish. And again, we defer to the commission if that's what you require.
Can I ask a question? Will there be any chemicals used either to put out fires, to feed the area? Will there be any chemicals introduced besides what is already on the solar panel should they degrade?
That's a good question. No. So unless the commission requires the use of pesticides, herbicides for like invasives, otherwise, no, we do not use, we're not proposing to use any herbicides, pesticides. And then as far as firefighting, the recommended method is to let the system. So basically,
Even on the panels?
not the panels. The panels are basically made of glass and aluminum and steel. So they're really not a source of fire.
They have current going through. So potentially they are a source of fire. Solar panels have caught fire. So starting with that, they have current going through them and they can catch fire. I don't know what it burns, as it goes, but. So my question is, how do you put that out?
The panel will be water, and so we know foam or anything like that. And the same thing with batteries. Again, if anything was used, it'd be water, which would be used to make sure the surrounding area, is cooled down. But yeah, no foam or anything like that.
Let me add one thing. Since my grandfather owned the property, Eversource used to use herbicide underneath all those power lines. He said no herbicide on the property to control growth underneath the high tensions. And that's how the property has remained.
Thank you for adding that. Anyone else want to make a comment? Yeah, right. Peter?
Yeah, hi, Peter LaPointe, and you know, I'm the chair of the planning board, but, I have concerns about the impact on the buffer zone. And I don't know what the regulations say about activity in the 0 to 50 versus 50 to 100. But I'm particularly sensitive to these two wetlands and would like to know, what the jurisdictional authority you have over those areas.
Well, we do have jurisdictional authority. We have, in certain cases, allowed something outside the 50 feet. But that's often related to a house or something like that. I know we don't favor doing anything in it, so. And Jack, I think, wanted to speak to that, didn't you? Sure.
According to DEP, I can't cite reference book right now, but, if activities outside the buffer zone could hinge upon buffer zone associated resource area, they don't have to be allowed. Does that answer your question, Peter?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is whether or not any of the activity that is proposed within the buffer zone is allowable.
Yes.
It is?
Yeah.
Including the cutting of trees, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to add it there?
I'm just curious to know why you didn't do a soil survey. Seems like you're flying blind if you don't know the permeability.
It's a very small piece in the overall stormwater picture. So even if the infiltration was, you know, varied widely, it wouldn't affect the system all that much. Because the impervious surfaces, the concrete pads are so small, the actual recharge requirements that we need to meet per DEP is small. And so therefore it really doesn't impact the overall system that much.
But if the pads don't take up much area, that tells me that the rest of the area isn't under the and will be subject to these drip edge phenomena. And you don't know what the soil type is.
Well, we do, so the USGS data does provide soil groups. And that's not what the reference was, that's not what the comment was referring to for Mass DEP. The soil groups, we've actually modeled the soil groups as D soil. So we're as conservative as possible in that regard. So, you know, that's another reason that it's really like, if anything, our system would be over-designed if we went and found, you know, did soil investigation, but their comments were more specifically about the actual infiltration rate. We just erred more conservatively at this stage of design because we're just, you know, we're still looking for permits or some use permits as opposed to like a construction.
Don't you have a soil scientist that includes it?
We have a soil evaluator, yeah.
All right, well, our options, Jack has suggested extending this to the meeting. I guess assuming there'd be more information coming in.
Yes.
All that, yeah. Or we can approve this, proposal with conditions, or we can deny it based on, wanting more information, which would require another notice of intent. So I'm going to put this to the, Conservation Commission as to what.
Can I ask one more question before you proceed with that?
Yes. One more,
One more. Just in terms of the drought, because we have been having a drought, and I just looked at my garden, it was watered this morning, it is bone dry tonight. So without the soil evaluation, and let's say that we're gonna reseed everything and you're gonna cover it with hay or straw, not hay, whichever, you know, and how is it gonna reseed if it's this dry? And it has been this dry for 2 years in a row.
I mean, we're gonna be obligated to make sure that it's seeded, regardless. of the
Beyond
conditions.
seeded.
Because obviously, there's only so much you can do if it doesn't rain. But part of the process, I guess, just to kind of go over the process, what we are requesting is order of conditions. If the commission grants us an approval and order of conditions after we've constructed the site, we will actually need to request to close that order of conditions. And in order for the commission to grant that closure, they're gonna likely go out on site and make sure that we've met our obligations and actually have gotten chance to grow. Yes,
So,
that's yeah.
and during construction, if it's this dry, there's gonna be an enormous amount of dust. So are you gonna have water trucks to come up and keep that dust out of the air?
We can,
I've seen this
we
before
can do
with
that
Clark,
if
and
it's
it was
necessary.
really bad.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want, bottom line is we don't want dust, to impact the neighbors, so if needed, if it's that dusty, we can make sure to have a water truck.
we could also make that,
Yes. And we'd
I mean,
be,
anything like that, we could make conditions when if we approve it.
You could also talk with Eric Weinstein about that as well. That I don't want dust going into my house and
Of course,
surrounding houses during construction.
yeah.
I was very interested in the discussion that Boone was bringing up about the aquifers
Mhm.
and hearing the possibilities of chemicals that could leach based on unforeseen circumstances or, I'm just wondering, how do all those trucks affect the aquifers? All the damage to everything above. I mean, if the aquifers are damaged, that means somebody's gotta provide bottled water for everybody affected to be able to even bathe, because if you get those chemicals into the aquifer, you can't even bathe in the water. We had that happen with my aunt's property. Something happened at one of the aircraft places, and they had to provide special filters and water and everything else for the tenants who were affected nearby.
Well, I know we all pride ourselves on Plainfield's water. It's so wonderful, so. I've raised a very interesting.
It'd be very consistent. I mean, I'm not right next to it, but we
No.
already don't have potable water in this building.
No. But we used to have little aqueducts here years ago that went right down to your house, but,
Yes.
and that was great water, yes.
A quick question about wells. I should know this about our well, but is there like a repository where some of the town people's well water comes from, or is each house individually supplying their own well water?
Well, we have, all of us have wells, but, Aquifer Leonard referring to is close to where this is gonna be done, and historically, there was an aqueduct that went out to the center of town, and all those homes there used that water. So I don't know if I answered your question, but,
There is like one big area where most of the town, well water comes from.
it's pretty, there's so many, there's so many springs in Plainfield, and they were blessed with all these springs with wonderful water. So we value our water here.
So there's different areas.
Yeah, we're different, but the ones
Well,
she's referring to definitely wasn't originally a historic, spring that brought water to the center.
And just quickly going back to the conversation about the use of chemicals, planning board meeting, if there was discussion around whether fire suppression systems will be used in batteries. on the site. I'm curious as to whether those systems use, or any of those, chemicals toxic that could potentially be exposed to the environment in the case of fire.
Liquid rate. Clean agent called statins, we can give you guys the materials that you should have to explain exactly what's in that. But basically it's a aerosol. It's, gets sprayed if there's a incipient event or like a spark or a failure inside of the battery container, to take the temperature of that reaction down. And the container has a containment system within it. On the container, just would lift edges that come up, and the aerosol as it came down. It's physically damaged, and you know the battery containers sort of broken. They're it should sort of quickly.
What's in the aerosol, a water-based aerosol, or is it?
They call it a clean agent in the literature for the certainly consider you guys the SDS.
Yeah, understood.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in these new, is there new stormwater in here?
Yeah,
My question is, when it's really dry and then we have a rain event and it pours, it just runs off. So how do you take that into account, those extremes?
that is a limitation of stormwater modeling. That's not, those kind of nuances will not, you know, just not taken into account. Really with any stormwater modeling, at least as far as, you know, typical industry standard stormwater modeling. There are factors that, so there's curve numbers that get applied to each ground cover type, and those curve numbers are part of what goes into determining those is the amount of they call it initial abstraction, which is like the amount of rainfall that falls on the ground before it starts actually creating runoff, right? Because if you have a light dusting, you know, of rain, you don't actually get runoff until it saturates that top level. So that is accounted for in the report, but I think the kind of more nuanced situation situation that you're referring to is not necessarily like, there's not necessarily a comparison of like, you know, a moisture level at this rate compared to really dry, what's the difference there? You don't get in that level of detail.
Okay, we only have 5 more minutes for this hearing. So, for the Conservation Commission, do we postpone? Do we accept with conditions, or do we deny?
Right.
We want to fix it. You do too?
I agree with that.
Okay, so it looks like we will postpone this till our next meeting. That would be a month.
Yeah, well, it'll be sufficient time.
Okay. All right, so,
If I,
Yeah.
there's a question similar to what the planning board did. Will you be closing the public hearing portion tonight and continuing the delegation portion?
has you shaking your head? No, I think we should continue the public. Okay, so yes, unanimous, we will continue the.
Well, I wish we made a motion first.
Pardon.
I'll make a motion that we continue this hearing until, I think it's the 28th,
October.
but that's less than 3 weeks business days.
Okay,
So we'll postpone the studio.
yeah,
Oh, yes, it'll be open.
and
Judy, don't forget that this hearing is a week later, it's been delayed a week later, so you only have 3 weeks to your next meeting.
We'll take that into account.
yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Is there a place I could get a list of the pollinator mix that'll be used, cause that'll affect my meadow and the gardens that I have.
and
The pollinator mix, is it possible to get a list that might be planted across the thing? Just so I know what will be coming across.
I can provide it if you either give me your contact information or go through Judy. I can
Sure.
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all for coming and for your input, evaluate, and, I think we all really care about our community, so let's make the right decisions for us and take the thoughtful time to decide. Okay, thank you.
And thank you for providing the extra. Thank you.